The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler and Jim Kaiju Baker. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
So are we into this? Is this it? Are we January 2025?
We're January 2025. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. Hopefully you survived the holidays.
Yeah, and you survived our extended hiatus over the holidays?
Yes, yeah, it's been a hot minute since we've talked, let alone to anybody out there. But yes, Happy New Year to one and all. Hopefully, hopefully this goes well.
We got a good movie year coming up as Marvel fans, and one is coming right up on the horizon. Brave New Order, Brave New World.
It is. Yeah, they changed the name. I think they thought that New World Order was a little too militaristic. I guess I don't know that somebody's co-opted that somewhere.
I'm thinking the Aldous Huxley novel. I think I don't think it's that heady. Yeah.
No, geez, imagine that. For the last 3 weeks, I've been banged over my head with this with the trailers for this movie. So it's coming up February.
My wife actually watched one on TV the other night, and she's like, "Just wait a second. Does Harrison Ford change into that monster?"
Yep. Yeah. Someone else did a double take too. I'm like, watch that. Oh, I know. New Year's Eve, we were with my wife's friends, and I said, "Look, they turned Harrison Ford into the Hulk," and she's like, "Are you effing me?" I'm like, "Nope." And he's grumpy enough. He
is. He's a perfect Hulk.
He's a curmudgeon.
Yep.
We've talked about this on the show.
I'm always angry.
I don't know. I don't think so. You know, he does seem to always be just
to ask him for an autograph. He turns into the Hulk.
He's actually pretty good about that on the streets, from my understanding.
On the streets, I know sending in he is, because you've got one. You've got
but I also
firsthand experience.
I paid $1,300 for that signature.
But at least he did it. You know, you did have to pay, yes, given, but at least he did it.
Listen, they're not doing this out of the goodness of their hearts, man. It's a paycheck.
So you gotta flash some green on the streets if you see him.
Yeah, apparently. Same thing with Jim Carrey coming into this movie. Man was in retirement. He was all happy. He was content. And then somebody shows up with a boatload of cash, and he's like, "Okay," which I'm not gonna.
But he also said, "Okay, so we're doing Sonic 3 today."
Yes, we are doing Sonic 3,
which is, in a large part, a Jim Carrey movie. I would put it in his pantheon.
It is a very Jim Carrey movie. He should be front and center.
As were the other two. I don't know if you went back and did your homework, but
nope. No, I did not watch the other two.
He's large and in charge in the other two as well.
Okay. All right. Well, so we'll get there. So we are covering Sonic 3, Sonic the Hedgehog, just in case you want the full title.
Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
Yes. And then we are going to be pairing that up with the original 1982 Tron, which we dabbled with. We mentioned way back in our 1982 episode, which was it was eons ago.
It was a mention, compared to what our normal coverage
is. Oh no,
is.
yeah, correct. We shoved a lot into that. That was a ill attempt at breaking format, and we broke it all right. So we've never gone back to that format again. All right. Do you want to do a little bit of news?
Sure.
And then we'll go right into
what do we got?
Okay.
It's been a while. So
it has been a while. And unfortunately, there really isn't a ton of news out there. Everyone's laying low, I guess. But you just mentioned that we have a bunch of Marvel stuff coming up this year. And I just saw a trailer for Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which is going to drop on Disney Plus January 29th. Now, this is a new animated series, and it looks like it's really taking Peter back to high school. But they're replacing Tony Stark mentor with Norman Osborn, which I think is an interesting
So they're going back to the Spectacular Spider-Man blueprint, which I still hold far and away as the greatest animated Spider-Man iteration I've ever
Okay.
seen, even including those Into the Spider-Verse movies. So
Ooh,
I
that's high praise.
I think that they have a lot to live up to.
Well, when you're going to compare it to Into the Spider-Verse, the animation is very stale compared to that. But the only reason I wanted to bring it up is the fact that they've gone back and they've utilized the original 1967 Spider-Man theme. Spider-Man, Spider-Man.
Well, that's never really went away, right? Because you
No,
hear it
but
in the movies too.
yeah, but like if you want to go to Sam Raimi's original Spider-Man, it was meant more as like a little pop culture joke. The girls singing it in the subway after
Mhm.
Spider-Man became a thing. This is out there. This is the theme. It's throughout the trailer.
I wonder if it's set in the 60s as well.
It does not look like set in the 60s.
Oh,
You're
that's
not
too
going to
bad.
get a Peter Parker without his cell phone.
Hmm.
So how else he going to take pictures of himself? He's not like he's going to carry a camera around. I just think it's an interesting choice. You've established in the MCU that, Tony Stark is kind of giving him his tech and now they're going to change it up. Why? I have no idea. But I like the idea that they've incorporated that Spider-Man theme. And to that point, while we were away, James Gunn's Superman trailer dropped. And they too are incorporating the original Superman John Williams score.
Did they also in the Brandon Routh version?
Yes. Yeah. If you want to go to the Brandon Routh, who's the director that's been canceled?
Singer.
Bryan Singer. Yeah, that was on the other night. I caught the tail end of that. Kind of goes out with a whimper, but I did like that. But you're right that he did incorporate that as well. And I think that these subsequent Superman iterations have kind of walked away from that. So I know you tend to stay away from these trailers, but because it's DC and we don't normally delve into DC, have you actually watched the trailer?
I haven't actually gotten that trailer, so I haven't
You
had the
haven't.
opportunity to
So you haven't
watch
seen it. It's
Yeah.
been all over social media.
Yeah, no,
all
I don't
over
go
the
looking for
interwebs.
trailers, but I probably would
No,
watch
they
it
find me.
if it came up.
They do find me. So it looks interesting. It does not look like a James Gunn. It's hard to tell because you're not getting a lot of dialogue, but he is incorporating. He's bringing in. You've got Nathan Fillion as Hal Jordan, not Hal Jordan. I apologize. The Green Lantern, but the jerk one. What the hell's his name with the bowl haircut?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know,
Okay.
DC.
Yeah, Hawk Girl. There's a bunch of so it looks like.
Oh, we get a green. By the way, we get a Green Lantern reference in Sonic 3.
We do, and it's a very funny one at that. So we got James Gunn's Superman. That's dropping July. But we also have Fantastic Four dropping in July, and we haven't seen hide nor hair of. We haven't seen anything on this yet. They're keeping it close to their vest.
They are,
I guess.
which makes you all the more excited for it.
I am cautiously optimistic. I guess we'll have to wait on that one. But if you want to, we can go back into DC for one split second because we just had news drop at the end of the year that our friend Jason Momoa, who has previously played Aquaman, is now set to play Lobo. And I know you're going to say, I don't know who that is either because I don't follow DC.
Correct.
You don't know who that is. Okay.
I've heard the name, but I don't know if he's a good guy, a bad guy.
I think he is a intergalactic alien bounty hunter. And I guess he's a bit of a jerk, but he has been Momoa has been pushing for this character for a while, and he is now set to appear in Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow.
So Aquaman in space, he'll be playing.
Aquaman in space. He better hold his breath. That's the whole movie. He just turns purple. James Gunn came out and said, I'm not above recasting or looking at some of these characters and these actors who've established themselves in these movies and bring them in new roles. So
and then except for Henry Cavill.
Except for Henry Cavill, yeah, or Ben Affleck. I think he's pretty much done as well, or Ezra Miller for that matter.
Gal
I think we're
Gadot is still on the fence.
Listen, Gal Gadot is. She should just walk away just out of spite. They should hire her and then be like, you know what? Let's keep you anyways. And she's like, you know what? I'm good. Screw you. So there you go. That's really all the news I have. There's nothing else going on. Like you said, there's Golden Globes tonight. Any big favorites?
I don't even know who's nominated. I'm not on top of it this year.
Well, if you're not, I don't know who would be. So I'm out. So then let's go to the theater.
Let's go to the theater.
Let's go.
And we get another thank you. I always appreciate those thank yous at the beginning of the movie when the cast.
You
thanks
don't
for
get
coming
that
to the theater.
You don't get that when you're home.
No, you don't.
I'm sure you can probably see it on YouTube though. Someone probably already recorded it and dropped it.
Ben Schwartz with his adopted parents on either side of him.
Did James Marsden make some deal with the devil on this? What is he doing? He's just acting against cartoon characters now.
Well, I thought you were going to say he never ages because he doesn't.
That is true. If you go all the way back to the 2000 X-Men, he looks exactly the same. But think about, he was in Enchanted, and he was an animated character. He was playing against a cartoon squirrel 3/4 of the movie.
He was in Hop.
Hop, which was a big one
which is very
rabbit.
Underrated, I think.
Is it? I've never seen it. He's actually done voices for My Little Pony.
I don't blame him for that whatsoever. If he's found a niche, go for it, man. He's getting a check.
I guess, and that's what it's all about. We just mentioned it before. I don't know. I can't tell you I've seen him in anything.
And he's great in these roles as well, you know?
Oh, really? In this one?
I think he is.
Okay. Now,
I'm very partial to him because, you know, as I've said, I've seen all three Sonic movies several times. I had to see this one twice. So,
oh, yeah. I was going to ask you.
I got all my plot points, you know.
Did you? All my plot points? So I did read somewhere that at some point the writers originally wanted Tom to die. And I can understand. I understand. So they did not go that route.
I would be shocked if that happened in a Sonic movie.
Well, I think they wanted to put Sonic in almost like what Shadow goes through, this kind of this dark path of revenge. I think they were looking to put Sonic there and then decided against it. So,
well, why don't we start with James Marsden? He plays Tom Wachowski. I wonder if that's an homage in itself.
To Mike?
That name.
Mike Wachowski.
To the Wachowskis, right?
The Wachowskis, yeah.
Yeah, of Matrix fame.
I did not pick up on his last name.
No, you don't. I'm just looking at it now on Wikipedia.
Okay. Okay. Because at least in this one, I didn't pick up on them referring to him by his last name. So if they adopted Sonic, does that mean that's Sonic's last name? Sonic Wachowski?
I would think so, yes. So and then Tika Sumpter, who is the MVP, I think, of all the movies, plays Maddie, who's Tom's wife, so the adoptive mother of Sonic. And in the first one, he started out as a small-time sheriff who was trying to get into the big city law enforcement game, and he was successful. So in Sonic 2, he made that transition, so then Sonic kind of became a city superhero of sorts. And now it looks like they're back in the old rural lifestyle.
Yeah, because early on, they actually find Sonic's old domicile where he was living in a cave.
Yes, and I didn't go back and watch the first one, so I'm kind of foggy on what happened at the very beginning of the first Sonic movie. But yeah, he uses the rings and he ends up on Earth, and he was by himself for quite some time until he's discovered by Tom, and then hilariousness ensues.
Hilarity ensues.
So it's important to note that Sonic is, you know, a solo character in the first movie.
Okay,
it's all focused on him. Tails and Knuckles comes into it in the second movie. And then, of course, we have Shadow in the third movie.
Yes. So these are aliens.
Yes.
From another planet.
Yes. As they point out in this film. Yes.
Okay. Even though he is a hedgehog, Knuckles is an echidna, and Tails is a fox.
Yes.
These are alien hedgehogs, alien echidnas.
Yes, because they can't walk on two legs or speak on Earth. So
anthropomorphic, anthropomorphized. not that we're going to cover the first one, but I do remember when that initial trailer dropped and the collective internet lost its mind because they had tweaked Sonic's look.
Yes,
for the big screen.
Ugly Sonic, as it's
Ugly
called.
Sonic, yes.
Yeah.
And the uproar and the outcry was so vast that the studio went back and reworked the movie to make this character look just like the video game.
Mhm.
Who would think, all right, we have this property, let's make him look different. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
And let's make him look horrific.
Horrible. At that. Yeah. And listen, so my family does have a little bit of a Sonic connection. We want to talk a little bit about our movie going experience, because I will say, for the very first time ever on this podcast, I was able to get both of my children to accompany me to the movie theater.
Oh, that's great.
Mom would have joined us, but she opted to go up to the condo by herself and leave us all be. But both my children, who are in their early 20s, came to the theater. We enjoyed ourselves, and then we went out for dinner afterwards. And I was thrilled. There were no chili dogs harmed in the making of my lunch, though.
Did that increase your estimation of this movie?
Yeah, because I'm sitting there. I will tell you, we did have a gentleman with what I can only consider as a date under duress sit behind us, and he was a little bit of a know-it-all. So throughout the movie, he's explaining every little Easter egg and every little reference and why certain things are funny. And you could just see her slowly deflating and be like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. And even my kids were calling him out a little bit, because at one point he makes a reference. He tells this girl that Sonic is influenced by Michael Jackson. And I'm like,
because of the gloves?
I don't know. Well, Mickey Mouse wore gloves long before Michael Jackson was a gleam in his daddy's eye. I don't know. It was really weird. It was interesting. But I will tell you, I have two cats who are now, well, one of them 17 years old. They were twins, Shadow and Blaze, named after Sonic characters. And I will tell you this. In the third grade, my son came home and asked his parents point blank, can I change my name? Well, to what? To Sonic. No, but for real. Yeah, okay. So for probably a 2-3 week window in this kid's life, he signed all of his homework Sonic. His teacher called him Sonic. He requested chili dogs every night for dinner, and none of his friends would go along with it. So eventually he dropped it. And now he's embarrassed by the story, but you know, in third grade, it's pretty funny. Yes. So Sonic is, he's part of this family, whether I've seen the first two movies or not.
But it is amazing, because even last time you were saying, even though he himself is such a big fan, that you'd never get him to go to the movies with you. But
right. Correct. Yeah. Oh no, he'll go with his friends 100 times, see the same movie 3 times, but never around when Dad wants him to go. So unless I'm paying for him to go see a football game, then by all means, we clear the schedule.
So we get the Sega logo up front after the Paramount with the rings around.
Yeah, I was going to say, you mentioned
stars.
The rings, and I thought that was a nice little touch. Yes. I don't know if they've done that in previous movies.
I believe they have, yes.
Oh, okay. All right. So Paramount logo. Yep, the little stars are replaced by the rings.
But the Sega logo, as far as I know, this is the only property that they're even considering making into a movie. So I don't know if there's a planned Sega universe out there to be.
What other? I was going to say, what do they own? Crash Bandicoot? That's about the only alien creature we haven't seen yet.
This is true. Well, I think there's a whole plethora of Sonic characters that they can still pull from.
Well, if you sit through the end credits, you might actually see a new one.
Yeah, which was par for the course, because at the end of Sonic 2, you got teased with Shadow.
Okay.
So at the very end, because these Sonic movies, apart from the first one, because that was just Sonic against Jim Carrey or Dr. Robotnik.
Right.
So,
or Eggman. He's got multiple names.
Yes. Knuckles comes into the second one. Tails comes in as well, but immediately is Sonic's ally. Knuckles is aligned when he's introduced with Dr. Robotnik, and Dr. Robotnik, lies to him, fills his head, you've got to fight this Sonic. So it really is kind of the same story as what we get here, where Knuckles is the bad guy through most of Sonic 2, and then he changes heart at the end.
Is this why they were fighting over the Team Sonic name?
Yes.
Okay.
Then Knuckles at one point says, he's much more impressive than the hedgehog that I fought previously. So,
meaning that was Sonic.
Yeah, meaning that was Sonic. Yeah.
Okay. I will tell you right now, I am ill-equipped to comment on most of this. There's so many in video game jokes or references to the video games that I can't even begin to call them out or to reference them or to say, oh, that's from Sega 2 Sonic the Revolution.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. But I just enjoyed it for what it was.
Okay.
And for the most part, that was because of Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey steals this movie.
Yeah.
Jim Carrey is... I laugh so hard because it looks like he's having fun. He looks like he's enjoying himself. And I'm sure that anybody out there understands or knows the lore, which was he retired from acting. After Sonic 2, he basically said, I'm done. If the Angels bring some sort of script that's written in gold ink that says to me that it's going to be really important for people to see, then maybe I'll do it. So what do these guys do? They write a script in gold ink and hand deliver it to his door.
And apparently one of the selling points was he gets to play two characters here.
For half the money, though. He normally commands $20 million. They paid him 12 to do 2 roles. And he was like, okay. And I think that's just because he said he likes to buy things and he needed money.
Yeah.
Which is fine. This is your job. This is what you do. So he deserves every penny.
So as you said, he does not just phone this in. He is completely
and we've seen
on
roles
board.
where there are times when you like he's so manic in certain roles. And I understand like the Mask back in the day, that was the point of the character. But like he's just having a blast and he's enjoyable. You can tell that probably 3/4 of this stuff is ad-libbed. I mean, at what point he calls Sonic Dorcupine and I was crying for 10 minutes.
He seemingly dies at the end of Sonic 2 because he's on the top of this giant kaiju Eggman robot. And Sonic, for the first time, utilizes the Master Emerald and becomes supersonic at the end of Sonic 2 and destroys the robot, and it falls, however many feet that it is, and Robotnik is on top of it in the open air. So you assume he perishes at the end of Sonic 2.
That's what you get for assuming.
But yeah, of course he doesn't say here how he survived, but he just survived.
Well, that's like the end of this one.
Yeah.
They're cartoon characters. They're not going to... They'll be back for the next video game.
But what's great is you just see him watching a telenova in his lair and playing bongos on his stomach.
On his belly, on his big fat belly.
Which looked to be real, unless they did a really good prosthetics job.
It's got to be a prosthetic. I can't imagine he would go.
Hey, well, he is retired.
He is method. He is method.
Retired. Yeah.
I will tell you, they really did shave his head. He said he grew that out like a year and a half.
Which was a great scene because his assistant that shaves it puts him in a headlock and does it.
Yes. I'm assuming that this assistant's been in the other 2 movies. Oh,
yes.
Okay.
And that's why, because his specialty is going out for a latte with goat milk. And so this is why Knuckles calls him the goat milker, because that was a running gag in Sonic 2.
I did like this character. There's a clear Mr. Smithers, Mr. Burns bromance aspect to it.
Yeah, which was present through all the Sonic movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very cool.
So, it starts with Shadow incarcerated in stasis, and he's being held by Gun, and I assume that this is part of the games as well. Of course, Gun is an acronym for, Guardian Units of Nations.
Shoehorn that one in there.
Yeah. So the lore of Shadow in this movie is that he was in a meteor that fell to Earth, I assume, from Sonic's planet as well, because he's another hedgehog, looks just like him. But he's got a power set that Sonic does not. He can bamf. And he's got like John Wick, like gun firing ability. That's very apropos because he is voiced by John Wick himself, Keanu Reeves.
Yeah. So
Gun has kept him in stasis for all this time. And why they didn't capture Sonic, because they don't seem to care about Sonic being free.
No,
in the
they
world.
let him live in a little, I don't know what's going on. But so I didn't know anything about this backstory with the little girl who is.
Yeah, this was new to this movie. This was new.
But I think it's true to the video game. I think it's true to Shadow's backstory. And so the whole movie, you're getting bits and pieces of him and this relationship he's having with this little girl who, like you said, Gunn is keeping him in like suspended animation, and yet she sneaks him out almost daily to play with him.
Does she sneak him out, or like during that period, he's okay to be out?
I mean, he's running around. Think at what point can he just escape then?
Because I got this because I saw it twice. You know, it kind of a few light bulb moments went off. Like, oh,
I didn't
that's
realize
why they're
I'm
doing
gonna have
this.
to watch this twice to understand the plot.
So early on in the movie, they established that they were experimenting with Shadow's power.
Right.
So that's where Robotnik's grandfather, he was the head of this secret lab. And while they were doing the experiment, Shadow was loose and, you know, doing stuff. And they were taking notes and everything else. So
he's like running around in the super collider.
Yeah, so you assume this was the period when he was bonding with a little girl, when he was loose and they were experimenting on
You'd think that he'd want her as far away as possible.
Yes. But then the explosion happens. The grandfather gets arrested. The girl, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this, stop listening right now. The girl is killed in the explosion. And of course, Shadow holds a lot of guilt, resentment for this. But not so much guilt. He blames Gunn.
He blames Gunn.
Yeah.
Gunn's kill.
Because she was tired of him getting experimented on. She was trying to pull him out so they could both escape together. Yeah. And that's when she is killed.
She went too hippie on them. They had to take her out.
So he goes ballistic.
Yes.
And that's when they put him in stasis. Now, they tell him he's been frozen for 50 years. Yeah. But if she's listening to the Traveling Wilburys, that's not 50 years. Mm-hmm. It's more like 35. But we'll forgive that.
That's when you crunch the numbers, you're like, damn, it's still a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know any of that backstory, and it's meted out to you, you know, in little bits and pieces throughout the movie. So I had no clue. So I'm waiting through this whole movie for her to come back and calm his ass down. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't happen because she's dead.
So my question is, it's revealed that Robotnik is also the grandson. Is this Jim Carrey's sister? His cousin?
Yeah, it's never really explained.
Yeah.
No, it's not explained. So old man Robotnik, like, I guess he was like, well, all right, they killed her. I guess we're just going to have to destroy the earth.
Well, but they put him in prison because they thought he was responsible. So he's been locked away, plotting his revenge this whole time. This whole 50 years.
Yes. It's just an excuse to have Jim Carrey play two different characters. And again, I'm all for this. Yes. I am so on board.
As you said, he just commits to both.
He is so much fun to watch. And there is a dance sequence. So my son did warn me. He says, apparently there's a dance sequence in the middle of this. And I'm like, really? And then when we get there, I'm like, I couldn't stop. It was like great because it's choreographed. It's him dancing against himself. And yet they're one of those Mission Impossible laser, which should have cut them into a billion pieces. And yet somehow they just dance around it.
Well, it's because the suits make the lasers not affect
Not
them.
A single laser is going to hit their head.
No, apparently
hands?
Not. No.
Right. Yeah.
It's just like when you have a bulletproof car, nobody goes for the tires.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shoot the head. The only thing that's, Anyways, it was very enjoyable. So Jim Carrey makes this movie for me.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I laughed out loud.
I could do without these space porcupines. Because I know Ben Schwartz has been playing this character since day one. Sonic doesn't interest me at all. And I'm going to say it right now, and I hate to say this, the weakest link in this entire movie is Keanu Reeves. I did not like his read. I did not like his take on this character. He had I get it that he's emotionless, but it was so monotone. And maybe that works for a John Wick movie. But here, he was like, all right, Shadow, I didn't care about.
I guess they had to establish him as a threat. Right.
Which is fine. He's a threat, but like there was no emotion behind that. He never showed like he was angry. And when I was reading about this director, Jeff Fowler, he said we did multiple takes. Keanu Reeves killed it. He gave us all types of emotions. I think you chose the worst take of every one of these lines.
Well, it'll be interesting then when he comes back as an ally in the next movie, because he's set up that way at the end of this movie, how he's going to make that read.
Yeah, this is also my one big ding against this. So we get two end credits. We get a post credit and we get an end credit. Mm-hmm. They should have been reversed. We all know, like you just said, we see, the whole end and the ship blows up and Shadow is on it. And oh no, is he alive or is he dead? We all know he's still alive. So you could have shown us his feet 2 minutes into the credits and then saved the new character reveal for the end credit.
Which is a more impressive end credit. So,
right. Yeah. No, you reverse this. So now I got to sit all the way through those credits just to see Shadow's feet. And you're like, oh, yeah, he did live. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thanks for wasting my life.
Maybe they'll print the script in gold again because Robotnik also apparently dies in that explosion at the end. But
does Sonic not have another bad guy? Is this Mario and
I think so. I think you can't do Sonic without Robotnik in some way, shape, or form.
Three movies in a row with the same bad guy. It's stale. I don't know.
Well, he has switched up his look each one.
Who, Sonic?
No, Robotnik.
Oh, yes. I did see in the posters that I think it's the second one. The mustache is a little closer to what he looks like. And then
so now he's got the belly. Yeah. So
yes,
now
correct.
he's much
and
more
the suit,
like
there was one because he has multiple suits or whatever. And the grandfather builds him a suit. And it looks spot on from like the cartoon. He's got the shaved head. He's got the big giant mustache. And I'm like, yeah, this is fun. Apparently, again, Jim Carrey was involved in every aspect of the look of this character, of the dialogue. So he was all in. But like you said, there's a couple of throwaway jokes in here. One of which is the hate watching Green Lantern, which was funny.
There's a Back to the Future reference.
There's a 1.21 gigawatt reference. We do get a Detective Pikachu call out.
Yes, which is a great little scene because they're in like a mascot restaurant in Tokyo.
Yeah.
So this is when the goat milker comes back in, who is Professor Robotnik's much maligned right-hand man. The Eggman is named the Eggman in these movies because he has these robotic egg-shaped babies, which are like drones, but they have lasers.
Okay, we did see those.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Grandpa has taken over these drones and is disguising himself as Eggman. So they think that that's who they're dealing with at the beginning of the movie, but it turns out it's not. Shadow's power is chaos energy. And so there's a couple of different fights. There's a fight above Tokyo with Sonic and Shadow, and Shadow always kind of wins.
Right.
Knuckles gets taken out like immediately by Shadow.
He at least shows some emotion.
But Ben Schwartz, I think, nails it on several occasions here. When the motorcycle guy comes in and takes out the drones, you hear him say, "Konnichiwa."
Like I said, there's so many callbacks to some of these video games and scenes and whatnot. And I'm just like, I can't even. If you're into this world, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. Yeah. You know what? I want to see more of the dog. I want to see more of Tom's dog, who was just like running commentary in his head the whole time, because apparently he's now getting shafted because they're paying attention to the hedgehog. Maybe the dog will be the bad guy in the next movie.
So briefly, they team up with Robotnik. They find Robotnik, doing bongos on his belly, watching telenovas, and tell him that he's got an imposter out there. So for a short time, they're allies at the beginning of the movie. And that's when you get the Prodigy Firestarter montage when he's getting his head shaved. And then once Robotnik realizes that it's his grandfather, because he's never had a family. So again, we don't know this backstory of why Robotnik grew up on his own. He immediately aligns himself with his grandfather and shuns the hedgehog.
How'd that work out for him?
Yeah, didn't work out at all.
Not so well. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I'm assuming that your son enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah, he enjoyed it. I would have to say, of the three movies, this was my favorite.
Yeah.
What made me laugh the hardest is the montage in the middle of the movie when they have some catch-up time. The grandfather and the grandson, they put on VR headsets and they recreate Halloween. They recreate Christmas.
Yep. Yeah, and that's when the assistant comes in with his lattes or whatever, and you just see the two of them sitting next to each other watching fireworks on their VR sets, and he's all sad.
At one point, the assistant is alone with Tails, and he's like, "So, how does Sonic treat you as like a henchman?" "I'm not a henchman. I'm his friend. I do all this stuff for him." "Oh, you're his friend." So from that point on, he starts to question his role with Dr.
Only
Robotnik.
took him 3 movies.
It only took him 3 movies. But yeah, that laser scene,
hysterical.
Funny stuff.
Maybe I'm just a child, but I did enjoy that.
The ending is a little bit drawn out. They do have about 2 or 3 different climaxes during the final fight.
Because Tails and Knuckles are gone for a bit there. Sonic uses the emerald, like he has to go back. So they did bring in, there's 3 characters that I guess are from the previous movies. When Tom and his wife infiltrate Gun, and they use the hologram to change them into different people. And I think that's her sister, supposed to be her sister and brother-in-law.
Yeah, they were
actors.
Introduced in Sonic 2, the sister and brother-in-law.
Yeah, and that's a fun scene. And again, I didn't need to know. I was able to figure out who those people were just based on,
And one of the big laughs was when Tom introduces the little Tom, the little puppet that he's got.
Oh, yes.
And the wife says, "I told you to get rid of that." And the puppet says, "I told him to get rid of you."
And then we have, so Sonic has to go and retrieve this emerald that's being protected by this guy who's using it as a hockey puck. And I guess he's in the Knuckles cartoon, or he's in the Knuckles miniseries.
Which I haven't seen. So,
okay.
Yeah.
But again,
he's in the first one as well. He was when Tom was a small town sheriff, that guy was his deputy. So he gets promoted to sheriff once Tom goes to the big city. Okay.
Yeah. Again, I didn't watch the other 2, but I don't think I missed much. There may be some in jokes or whatever, but
you don't need to see really the other movies here.
Yeah, it's not like I'm watching John Wick 4 trying to piece together the other 3.
So what Grandpa wants to do, he built when he was with Gun, when he was with the secret government organization, I guess he built like the ultimate weapon, and he wants to get access to it. So for the most of the movie, he's trying to get the key code that will give him access to this weapon, which looks like a big, the drone from the beginning of Empire Strikes Back, like a giant size version of the drone that's on Hoth that the Empire
pinchers,
sends.
the Probot.
And so it's in space, and that's where the final battle is. And
Robotnik, it started underneath the Thames.
Yes, it did. And that's where the thing is buried. That's where the thing was hidden. So Robotnik balks when his grandfather says, "I'm going to destroy the Earth." "What? Wait a second. And with us with it." So
yes, correct. Yeah, he was willing to take himself out. I was like, that's not a plan at all. Like, I'm just going to kill them all. Yes, indeed. Yeah, it was an excuse to have a big space battle.
So that's when everybody kind of turns against Grandpa at the end. So they're all at the end trying to stop this huge destruction machine from destroying the Earth. Doesn't quite work because they saw the moon in half as they're trying to do it.
Which should really play chaos with some of the titles, the ocean tides. I guess that's for Sonic 4. We'll deal with that in 4.
Right. Maybe they'll show them repairing the moon in Sonic 4.
There you go. A lot of duct tape and staples.
So it's a happy ending. We first think that Shadow has perished, but no, of course not. He has survived. But we get that post-credit scene that establishes Amy, I think
Amy
her name
Rose,
is.
yeah. Amy Rose, who's another Fox.
And the kids in my theater were very excited to see Metal Sonic, the robots.
The Sonic robots.
End. Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of cool. Off camera, we were talking about Chuck E. Cheese's. They look like they belong right in a Chuck E. Cheese.
But the big question is, because again, I don't know where these things come from in the game. Like, okay, who sent them? Who's the bad guy now? Is it Robotnik?
Yeah,
is it somebody else?
No, right.
Yeah.
Enough. I say Jim Carrey, just take his money and run. You're not going to top this. You got 2 of them, unless there's 3 of you in the next movie.
But yeah, it was fun. It was an enjoyable afternoon, and I was happy to see it twice, and I laughed again when I saw it the second time.
Okay, all right. Nothing
So,
wrong with that.
okay, so what did your kids think?
They enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah.
We all laughed at the same stuff. But again, they have a deeper sense of the lore. They played the video games. So, yeah, they probably caught references. I had no clue. But half of the entertainment was this gentleman behind us trying to explain to his date why certain jokes were funny. And it's like, that's not how it works. I don't think there was a lunch involved with that afterwards. I think she kindly dismissed herself and went home.
Poor guy. Was what he was saying
he
accurate?
Was I don't know. But again, like I said, he mentions the fact that Sonic is influenced or designed or created based on Michael Jackson. And I'm like, we all kind of, the three of us just looked at each other like, is that true? And I didn't look it up. He was very enthusiastic. I will say that. He probably would be somebody I'd want to sit around a table with after a movie and just talk ad nauseum about it. Don't talk at your date in the theater about it.
There were a couple of single adults in my theater.
I would have been one of them if my kids didn't come with me.
But I think that speaks to the original Sonic fans.
Well,
from the 90s.
I mean, this characters have been around for, you're talking 20 plus years now, easily.
Yeah.
Probably 30. I don't know when Sega came out before my kids were born. That's like my kids, they're so shocked. They think that they invented Pokemon. I'm like, no, they were around long before you ever were. I'm glad that they've been able to capitalize on this franchise, but find a new bad guy.
All right. So what kind of buckets?
I'm going to go 3 3/4.
I would do the same, actually.
Okay.
That's my vote as well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. And like I said, Jim Carrey just kills it. He really, if you tried to sell me on this, I'd be like, nah, really? I don't know. But sitting in the theater, I was highly entertained.
I was as well. So did you see the Dogman trailer again before this?
I did. I'm very distraught about the fact that Dogman is actually just a dead cop with a dog head sewn onto him. I had no clue that that's exactly what the origin of this character is.
With the stitches on his neck, a la Frankenstein. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't know about that. So couldn't they just put the policeman's head on the dog?
I think that would be even more disturbing.
That is very disturbing. That's now you're like dealing Mars Attacks crap. But,
yeah. A hearty recommendation from both of us for Sonic 3.
Yeah, it's doing pretty damn well.
Let me see.
I don't know what the numbers are, but it's.
Let me pull those.
We went like right after Christmas because I wasn't really sure how long this thing was going to play out, but there's really nothing up against it right now. I mean, Wicked, we just mentioned, is already streaming. You can sit home watch it.
So on a $122 million budget, up to this weekend, it has made $285 million worldwide.
All right.
So I don't think it's beaten Mufasa in terms of number one ranking at the box office.
Gotcha.
But it's making quite a bit of the percentage of the total gross at the box office. So there definitely will be a sequel, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, you're already setting up this Amy Rose. Like I said, so figure out how to bring in Crash Bandicoot. I don't even think that Sega owns that character. I think it's another video game. It's probably another company that was trying to cash in on the Sonic craze.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Let's find a Bandicoot.
I always mistake that character for Sonic. All right, shall we go to the concession stand?
Let's go to the concession stand. What you got?
All right. Well, this was tough because, of course, I go right for, okay, is there a video game candy that I can parlay into this? No, there's really nothing that's of note. I really, looked at both movies again to see if there was a through point, and it was like a light bulb. Finally, it went off. Tron has those memory discs that they wear on their back, the Frisbees.
The Frisbees. Really, they used real Frisbees, by the way.
Yeah. Sonic has the rings, so you've got a circular pattern in both movies.
Yeah.
I'm going... And this is classic. This is maybe the most classic that we've ever talked on during this feature. The Necco wafer.
Ooh, that's old school.
That is so old school that this candy was around during the Civil War. This was in This was in ration bags in the Civil War.
And you thought the 90s were a long time ago.
Yeah. The Necco wafer. Necco, Necco. Yes. This is an acronym, actually.
Oh, what?
The New England Confectionery Company is what
So
Necco
CO stands for company.
Yeah, CO stands for company. So this was invented in 1847. A few people had their hands in, but mostly Oliver Chase in 1847, who was an English immigrant, invented a lozenge cutting machine. And with that machine, he also produced these little wafers. At the time of the Civil War, these were called hub wafers and were carried by Union soldiers because these were a Northeastern kind of phenomenon. So I'm sure, like prisoners of war, the Confederate soldiers, what's this?
Right.
Over time, in wars since then, these Necco wafers have made their way into rations. World War I, World War II, because they were heat resistant and cold resistant. So they were also often included during expeditions to the South Pole and to the North Pole as well. So these things have been all around the world. On battlefields.
You got your boots, you got your pittance, you got your Necco wafers. Yep, we're good to go.
In 1901, Chase and Company merged with two other companies to incorporate the New England Confectionery Company, Necco. By 1912, the hub wafers were being advertised as Necco wafers. So, and that name, of course, they have carried ever since. So I already mentioned that these things were always popular in ration bags. As a matter of fact, World War II, the U.S. government ordered Necco. They had no choice. I don't even know if they were paid to produce wafers for soldiers overseas. So as a result of this, soldiers became addicted to them. And so once the war was over and soldiers started coming home, sales went through the roof. And I don't think they've ever been matched since, but everybody that had them in their ration bags needed them.
I need my Necco fix.
Yep. The company went through many hands over the years. Right up until 2018, they were still known as the Necco Company, the New England Confectionery Company, until they went into bankruptcy in 2018. They were acquired by Round Hill Investments almost immediately after going into bankruptcy, and they sold them almost immediately because they said the factory or whoever had sanitation issues that they were previously unaware of. Now, this makes me worry.
So how many billions of Necco wafers are out there built on nasty?
What were these sanitation issues is my question.
Yeah, you want to be a little more specific in that?
Yeah,
we're shutting the whole place down. Why?
Is this because they didn't see somebody washing their hands after they came out of the restroom? I don't know.
Did you flush?
So for 2 years, after Round Hill Investments let go of them, nope, we don't want any part of this because of these sanitation issues. For 2 years, between 2018 and 2020, there were no Necco wafers in the world.
Oh my gosh.
The Spangler Candy Company picked them up in 2020. Now, Spangler is famous for Dum Dum lollipops, which you can find in any bank in the United States,
I
right?
want my gum.
They also make Sweethearts, which are the Valentine little hearts with the messages on them.
Oh, yes.
And they make one of our favorites, quote-unquote favorites, the Circus Peanut as well.
You can keep those.
So now they can say that they've added the Necco wafer. And I actually bought myself a roll of Necco wafers and brought them into Sonic and chomped down through half of it. So I haven't had these since I was a kid, right?
Did you have flashbacks to the Civil War?
I had flashbacks to my childhood. I can't tell you that. Wow. I wasn't on the battlefield again.
All right, so you have to tell us how they tasted because it's been quite a while.
It's chalky.
It's chalky, okay.
It's chalky, especially when the pink kind, because I didn't remember the pink wasn't cherry. It's peppermint in the Necco wafer roll.
So it tastes like Pepto-Bismol?
It totally did. It totally did.
I used to fake a stomach ache so my grandma would give me some of that.
But then you get past that. There's other flavors in these things as well. Each roll, and this is to this day, contains 8 flavors. Lemon, which is the yellow, lime, which is the green, orange, clove, which is purple, cinnamon, which is white,
Okay.
Wintergreen, which is pink. They don't call it Pepto. They call it wintergreen.
But it's pink.
Licorice, which is the black.
Oh,
And
I
then
do remember those. Blech.
the superstar of the package, which is the chocolate, which is the brown. Because they make fully chocolate rolls of Necco wafers. To
just
this
that
day,
one flavor.
Just that one flavor. So you can either get it fully chocolate or assorted. And I went for the assorted.
Sure.
So it's dark in the theater, so I keep wolfing these things down. So I'm getting clove, I'm getting cinnamon, I'm getting wintergreen,
Here
I'm
comes
getting
dessert.
black. I'm like, a lot of these aren't even sweet as I'm eating them, but yet it was giving me such a nostalgic blast to sample each flavor that it was still enjoyable to me.
I wonder if there's did you look at the ingredients? Is there like crack in there? Is that why people became addicted to them?
Well, it's kind of really simple because the formula hasn't really changed.
Right.
Except in 2009, and when it was still Necco, before they were bought out by Spangler, they changed the formula briefly because they changed to all natural colors and all natural flavors. The reason they did it was they were hoping to draw young mothers concerned about their child's diet.
When was this?
This was in 2009. So the Necco community made such an uproar about this.
We want our artificial flavors?
They were switched. Yeah, we want our artificial. We don't like this new healthy crap. They changed it back to the original in 2011, and that's what it is to this day.
Wow. Show you.
The only thing that's changed is Spangler in 2020, when they bought out Necco, they released a statement saying, true Necco wafer connoisseurs may detect a richer cocoa flavor in the chocolate due to a minor improvement made in the cooking process. And I have to say,
heads up, it doesn't taste the same.
that chocolate was far and away the best flavor that I sampled.
So the chocolate's the only one you can buy in a sleeve all by itself, the same flavor. I can't
Correct.
go get wintergreen as.
No, I don't think anybody would want that.
There's got to be someone out there who's champion wintergreen.
Now there are
Keep your
other.
chocolate.
I've never seen these on sale, but apparently there are other varieties. You can get tropical Necco wafers, which were introduced in 2012, which was mango, passion fruit, coconut, banana, lime, and strawberry.
Okay.
Which might be better than black licorice, Pepto-Bismol, cinnamon. Necco sour wafers.
Ooh, interesting.
Watermelon, wild berry, grape, sour apple, lemon, extreme tangerine, and blue raspberry.
Tangerine. Sounds like Kool-Aid flavors now.
Yeah. Now, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is where the factory was, which is adjacent to Boston, apparently, for years, their water tower on the factory was painted to look like a package of Necco wafers.
Ah.
So it had the logo and it had all the different colors
Layers,
going down. Now, ever since Spangler took over production, they don't produce them there anymore. So another company took over. Now there's like a DNA pattern that's painted on the same water tower.
It's not as much fun.
It's not as much fun, no. And there is a Necco wafer memorial sculpture.
A memorial.
In University Park at MIT, near the factory in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I'm looking at it, and it looks like it might be what it looked like in a ration bag, because they're spilling out of like this big kind of sack rather than the classic tube of Necco wafers.
But they're still in existence. Why would there be a memorial?
Well, maybe because they don't make them there anymore. That's why there's a memorial.
Oh, gotcha. So it's like,
This is where they came from, so we're making a memorial statue
homage.
for them. Yeah. So this is the longest candy that's ever been in production in the U.S.
That's crazy.
I think there's a little bit of contention about that because they suspended, as I said, between 2018 and 2020. Good and Plenty. Good and Plenty is the longest running candy continuously in the U.S. But just in terms of age, Necco wafers is number one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that is fascinating. Who knew? I will think differently next time I see those Necco wafers.
Yeah.
They are out there. You're right. I have come across them.
Although, they're not at your, just like anything else that's classic like this, you can still get them, but they're not in your normal grocery store. You have to go to like a specialty grocery store or a specialty candy store to find them in most cases. And that's what I did.
Wow.
There you have it. So this is
Very
exciting,
cool.
right? Our second feature.
Yeah, we're not going to go back as far as the Civil War, but we're going to go back 43 years, which is just mind-boggling in and of itself that we are going back to 1982, which was 43 years ago.
Tron,
the original Tron, not Tron Legacy. We do have Tron Ares coming out this year. I don't think they've set an actual release date, but I believe it is set for 2025.
And we've had an animated show drop.
Yeah, we've had Tron. What was the animated show?
I forget what the name of it was.
I have it. There was a video game, Tron 2.0, in 2003. Legacy dropped in 2010. Ares drops in 2025. And you are correct. There was an animated show as well.
So I wouldn't have thought that this franchise had the legs in order to have all these productions.
But that's the thing, which is this. So we're going to get into the production of this because in 82, it wasn't well received. And it was a bit of a fight to even get this thing made. But it does have some legacy. It's been sitting. Yeah, because Legacy came out in 2010. So you're talking like 30 years later.
Yeah, and let me tell you, so this was released during the height of the 80s blockbusters, right?
Yeah.
So the previous year, you got Raiders. The year before that, you had Empire Strikes Back. 82, you also had E.T.
Star Trek, Wrath of Khan.
So this was just one of them. And these movies were just hitting it out of the park every single time you went to the movies, right? Like, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen. This is the greatest movie I've ever seen.
We were in a renaissance when it came to film.
So I was expecting, and I was 11 years old when Tron was released. I was there probably opening weekend and saw this in the theater. In addition to this being like a super science fiction movie,
right?
It was a Disney movie, right? So I'm like, this can't lose. So I remember as a kid, I had no idea what was going on. Yeah, I was completely lost.
It is a very heady concept, especially when you consider nobody had, like, we had computers like in a computer lab in your high school, maybe, where you were writing code in order to play Oregon Trail. Yeah. Like computers were at the cutting edge right then. They weren't households. Like, nobody knew what a CPU was. Nobody knew what a user was. Yeah. So right out of the gate, you're right. I saw this in the drive-in, 1982. It's been a very long time since I've seen this. And once we settled on Sonic 3, I was like, well, it's a video game. We have to kind of like, lean into that. So that's where this comes from.
Yeah. So this may have been my first cinematic disappointment.
Wow.
And that's from somebody who saw The Black Hole in the theater. And Star Trek, the motion picture in the theater.
But both of those hold up now as a level of nostalgia.
Right.
Especially The Black Hole. Because Disney everybody was just clamoring. We need the new Star Wars. We got to make Star Wars. Yeah, you don't put dead people in robot suits and call that kid-friendly film. Yeah. Or have a homicidal robot.
And the big selling point of Tron is the light cycles, right?
Yes,
so that was part of the the advertising.
The lure, yeah, sure.
So and then when you get to see the movie and realize that scene is like 3 minutes. At best.
Yeah.
So
especially because you consider, like I said, the movie itself was a bomb. Disney animators didn't even want to work on this.
It wasn't, Disney didn't originate this idea at all. It was somebody who brought this to Disney.
So the director, Steve Lisberger, not only wrote this, but he directed it. This was his vision from day one. This was where he wanted to go with this. And I will tell you that technically it is an amazing achievement. And I will say this, it is on Disney Plus. And if you have any interest in seeing this, or you haven't seen this in a long time, I highly recommend that you go and watch this on Disney Plus because it looks phenomenal.
It does.
It looks gorgeous.
It's like Blu-ray level.
Yeah.
phenomenal on Disney Plus.
Which is what, when they were putting this together, this is what the guy was seeing. Unfortunately, when it's being projected on a 35 millimeter, now it was shot in 70 millimeter, but sitting in a drive-in, you lose a lot of this aspect.
Yeah.
It is like much of those Disney movies back in the day. It's slow. You get an action sequence right up front with what can only be considered, like some of the very first use of solid, vector-based CG with the tanks. It's video game level stuff. There's a lot of action. And then it's a good half hour before you get back into it. So this is, not to get too deep into the technique, but it's backlight animation. So it does happen a lot in hand-drawn animation. This is really one of the first times where they took. So what they did was they filmed the actors on a set, normally in a black environment. The suits are black and white. They literally, so all these suits that they're wearing when they're in this quote unquote computer world, this matrix, they got like this wild glow in the dark circuitry going on. In real life, that's like hand drawn with black tape and Sharpie markers. There's a featurette on Disney Plus where they show some of the behind the scene footage from back in the day. And I did a fair amount of looking up on YouTube, some of this old stuff. And yeah, it's really old school. But what they did is they basically filmed the live action and then printed out a negative of each frame, created a negative of the negative. So now you have the blacks are white and the whites are black or whatever. And then they pulled a third negative, which is just the face. They mask everything out except for the people's face. And then they hand color each one of those elements, lay them back together, and then film it against the computer background. So it is animation. Every one of these frames is pretty much hand drawn. You're talking 500,000 animation elements were put together on this, and the whole CG with the light cycles and the big battleships and whatever. Like animators were making up this crap, just like in Star Wars, where they were creating stuff in order to make this stuff. But a lot of the animators didn't want to work on this because they were like, I don't want to get involved in computers because this thing's going to replace me.
Well, didn't I see on one of those specials, it may have been on the extra on Disney Plus, that it wasn't Disney animators that they used, that they had to go outside?
It was another studio. There was a couple different studios involved, but again, because a lot of the Disney people didn't want to work on it.
But it still manages to look like a Disney movie. It feels like a Disney movie.
Yeah, there's a weird aesthetic to it. You get the Buena Vista logo up front because they're like, well, let's not just stick Disney up there. They wouldn't even submit it as an Academy Award because they said that using CG, using a computer, was cheating. So it wasn't even, you couldn't even submit it for any kind of nomination. Now, this was, 20 plus years before Pixar came around. Mm-hmm. But it looks fantastic. And again, it's been years since I've seen this. Legacy came out, 30 years later.
So, and to this movie's credit, this makes a lot more sense today than it did back then, because now I know what they're talking about.
Yes, correct.
Not just because I'm an adult. Like, a kid who watched this today could probably get it much better than I did when I was 11.
Like I said, nobody knows what a CPU is. Nobody, even if you call it a master control program, one of the characters' name is RAM. Yep. The fact that you're talking about avatars, the one doctor who was the grandpa in Lost Boys is talking about AI taking over. You're talking about computers taking over our jobs. And I'm like, yeah, that's just as relevant now as it was not even so much then. So they were a little ahead of the curve. But you're right. This was this guy, Steve Lisberger. He wrote, directed, and he created the visual effects, like the concepts. Like this was all his baby that he was pushing for. He was like 29 years old when he was filming this. So that's a big chunk of change to stick in some kid's pocket and say, yeah, go make this movie.
And he was developing this for years before he actually got the chance to make it. I guess it was inspired by Pong, the first time he saw it in 1976.
He's like, I bet you there's people inside
Yeah.
that.
That looked just like me, but with a shower cap on.
Yeah. Well, that was out of necessity. So if you go back to Disney Plus, there's this little 15-minute behind the scenes featurette where Listberger and his son, who's now a grown adult, get access to the Disney archives. So they're able to go back to they did like 6 months of previs on this before they ever shot a single piece of film. And there's character shots of Bruce Boxleitner with like friggin' mohawk hair. And they couldn't do that. They had to put a helmet on them because they just didn't have the computers didn't have the capability to mat around hair.
As I was watching him in this movie, Bruce Boxleitner, it's like, I wonder if this guy auditioned for Superman, because he would have been a fantastic.
He's got a goofy ass hair going on here. Yeah. Yeah. He looks very young. So does Jeff Bridges, for that matter. But again, 1982.
Yeah. Dude, speaking of hair, there's a weird, at the beginning, Jeff Bridges is rocking like a perm that he doesn't have for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. Like I said, he's wearing whenever he's in the computer and he's suddenly Clue, because there's counterparts.
And apparently Clue screams like a woman, like at any given point.
Wow. So this is definitely like Inception level, where you have actors playing real world humans, but then they're playing these computer counterparts, which are programs.
And they're just like humans, the computer counterparts.
Right.
Yeah, I work in accounting. I do this. I do that.
Yeah, that guy's out there like freaking Emu and Doug trying to sell life insurance. He's getting stuck in the games, but you've got this master control program.
But the master control program is sequestering all these programs that believe in the users, who are the humans. There's a lot of
religious allegory going on here that I never picked up on.
But if you're a program that's doing insurance, how can there not be users?
Right, because I saved Bob $200 last year on his homeowner's insurance.
I don't get
Bob?
What. Yeah,
what is Bob? Well, Bob's a user. Oh, so you're a believer? Well, yeah. There's some weird stuff going on here, but like you said, it's so heady. As a kid, like you just want to get to the action.
Yeah,
and like I said, this up front, you see Flynn, who is Jeff Bridges, playing a video game, and it is his avatar character, and you get the tanks, you get the battle tanks. I didn't realize those big things that fly around are called recognizers. I've never realized.
They look like the Klingon ships to me. Even though I don't know what came first, the Wrath of Khan or this.
Oh, well, the Klingon ships have been around since the 60s with the original Star Trek. They did update them slightly, but yeah. So Flynn is a hacker, but he's also created video games. So here's what I'm realizing. Free Guy stole this entire plot. The whole point of Free Guy is that Taika Waititi stole these kids' concept, and it's buried in a video game, and they have to go and find the original files.
Right.
That's what this whole movie's about.
That is, but they bury that plot in Tron with all this mumbo jumbo. So you often lose what Tron is about. Like,
literally halfway through, I had to write a note that just says, just realize, remember, this is all just to find evidence that Dillinger stole Flynn's video game designs.
So in the sequel to this,
Legacy.
Tron Legacy,
yep,
Flynn has become this figure, this deity in this world, when in the beginning all he wanted to do was get paid for the video games. That's
right. He wanted credit. Yeah, he got fired from his job because they stole his stuff.
So the thing that I didn't like was at the end because Dillinger, who is also the CPU,
who's also the bad guy, David Warner, from Time Bandits.
Time Bandits and Time After Time used Jack the Ripper.
Time After Time, that's right. Yep.
So, this is also like the corporation is bad.
Yes, yeah, there's an overriding message.
But yet Flynn, that means he's the bad guy at the end because he's taken over the company, right? So,
so
now he's gone corporate by the end of the movie.
So I guess they get to it real quick, which is apparently a random page from a laser printer is enough to hold up in court. Because all he gets is a
he's like,
printout
this is what I needed. I'm like, you could have typed that yourself.
from like a DOS 2000, right? This is he stole your file. It's like, oh, there it is.
Why did the master control unit destroy that rather than hide it somewhere?
That's my very first note. Why wouldn't if Flynn is trying to infiltrate this computer to get access to this file, just delete it?
I know. Oh, we've hidden it somewhere he can never find it.
Oh, you mean right over there? I know exactly where it is. We just got to go to that CPU.
If I was him, I'd have more fun in the arcade. Just stay there, dude. You got your own business.
Yeah. So he gets randomly. So the CPU basically zaps Flynn, digitizes him, and transports him inside the computer. So now he is a program. This is the whole concept, which is he's now trapped in this. And the CPU, for lack of a better, is just creating these gladiator-style war games to amuse himself.
That was my second question. Why not just destroy these programs rather than go through the theatrics of putting them in the games?
So you're giving these anthropomorphic, these personalities to these programs. It's like, entertain me, fools. And we get the cool little highlight with the stick, and they're on the big rings with the donk 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 when they run, and bouncing the ball off each other until one of them falls to their death.
And Clue is the only program that actually speaks in a robotic voice. I am looking right now.
Right. That's his users up there.
I am looking
typing
for the file. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. The talk of users and he's a believer, and there's a lot of religious implications going on here that don't really get explored. I think more so by the end of it, Clue has almost like Jedi powers, where he's doing stuff that other things can't do.
Especially, and that plays out in the second one.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point, right?
I just want to know, why doesn't every helicopter today have those lights on it?
Those are pretty. That was solid, right?
That was.
Yeah. Well, that plays into the whole video game concept of it. But I was tickled pink to rewatch this because, again, like you said, there's some very slow going moments, and it takes a while for them to actually get into the meat of it. Just show me the video games. Like you said, the light cycles. So the one thing is this movie failed miserably, but the video game that was inspired by it, the Atari, actually was successful.
I remember there being an arcade game for the light that looked like the one that was in the movie. It had the same joystick and everything.
Yeah. People loved the video game more so than the actual movie.
Apparently the video games made more money than the movie did.
Yeah. And yet, somehow it's endured, and 30 years later, they're like, we need to make a sequel. What ride in Disney did they just replace and put the light cycles in?
Yeah, the light cycles. I think maybe, just to be cynical, part of the big reason that they were able to do a sequel is that they could put that intellectual property back in people's heads so they could sell the ride and sell more tickets to Disney World.
Well, I mean, it is a corporation. It is, it's a money at the end of the day. They want to make money. I guess it's got a bit of a cult status.
Yeah.
It hasn't gone away. We talk about it. It is really cutting edge, as simplistic as it comes down.
But it was very curious that they would choose to reboot this or restart it, make a ride, like what's next? A black hole ride in Disney World?
Giant. I would like to see a life-size Vincent. And
I would too. Believe me, I would too.
There was a nice little Sherman and Mr. Peabody reference in here.
Yes,
it says "Fire up the Wayback Machine."
I didn't even catch that as a kid because but I caught it this time.
But think about that. That show influenced Marty and Doc in Back to the Future, Rick and Morty, even like Stewie and Brian and The Family Guy.
Yeah. So
shout out to the original Sherman and Mr. Peabody. So
Dillinger is the CEO or whatever of Encom. Yep. But would anybody believe this guy, first of all, even plays video games, much less invent them?
No, somehow, right. Yeah, at least Taika Waititi, I could buy it that he created that world. But this guy is just a slave to the Master Control program.
Master C, as he's called for short here.
C. It's like, just turn that thing off.
Yep.
Why even have access to it? Yes.
To the point where it is blackmailing Dillinger to do whatever it wants because, like, I'm going to tell the world that you stole the video games.
Right.
Yeah.
How about I just unplug you? We're done. Like, what is this computer doing? Yeah. So, anyways, right. It's got him by the short hairs. So he's got to do what he's got to do. Alan and what was the girl's name? Can't remember the girl. Laura.
Lora, I think. Alan is like an office schlub who has made this security program, thinking he's doing a great job. Like, oh, I made this just to make sure that the Master C doesn't get too big for its britches. And Dillinger's like, well, that's exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah. His character is like a private file that's just going to go around and investigate.
Yeah, and this security program is called Tron. Yes. And hence that is the title character of the movie.
But Alan is a nerd because if you look in his cubicle, he's got a big banner that says Gort Klaatu Barada Nikto, which is a reference to the day the Earth stood still. I'm like, all right. So when's the last time you saw an air popper?
Yeah, right.
You had a popcorn air popper, air popper.
But this is great because it makes you realize that pop culture references aren't a recent thing. That, you know, if you were looking for them, they were always there.
So one of the cool things about this is the fact that the concept artists, so you mentioned Star Trek, the motion picture. So Sid Mead and Jean Giraud, who is Mobius, is a very famous French illustrator, heavy metal, airtight garage. These two guys were brought in and did a lot of the concept. So a lot of these video games, a lot of the look of the ships and stuff like that, especially like when they're into program and they get to the old man that's in like the rotating, he looks like the guard from Wizard of Oz. There's some Wizard of Oz moments going on here.
It also looked like something out of The Fifth Element. That guy.
Correct. Yeah. So Mobius, that weird head canvas thing that the guy's wearing is very reminiscent of Mobius's work. So I was thrilled to rewatch this again. It's slow.
I appreciate it a lot more than I did when I was 11.
Like you said, as a kid, you watch it. It's slow. The action sequences are cool, but again, this is what video games were back in the day. It was like asteroids. They're just polygon lines. So these ships all have this neat design. There was one really nice design at the end, which is that solar sail, which is riding on the beam. And that is very close to like what Arthur C. Clarke designed for 2001 and 2010. We kind of NASA adapted that design with the big solar flares that are catching solar energy. Same thing with, Treasure Planet. But there is a hidden Mickey in there. Did you know that?
I read about it, but I didn't
I've
actually
never seen
see
it either, but I guess, during that solar sail sequence, there is a pool or a waterway on the ground below that is shaped like Mickey's head.
So the laser that zaps in Flynn is basically Wonka vision, where they explain that it takes all the molecules of whatever it zaps and holds them in the air and then moves them somewhere. So they do it with an orange earlier in the movie. So does that mean the orange gets zapped into the computer and then they bring it back?
It's basically the Star Trek tractor beam.
So
it's the transporter beam.
So when the orange goes into the computer, is it wearing like a shower cap when it gets in there?
It should come back.
And like the programs are like, oh, hey, what's that? And
actually, I would love to see the orange in the new movie Ares.
And it's got like a little hat, just like all the computers.
Helmet.
Yeah.
That was a real laboratory that they filmed in, this Lawrence Livermore.
Yes, I read that. Like a laser laboratory.
Yeah. I'm like, well, I want to go there.
I wonder if they really shot Jeff Bridges with a laser.
Maybe. This is also where they probably filmed Inner Space.
So here's another glaring kind of plot hole.
Yes.
They use real Frisbees as these identity discs that they give the players in the game.
They actually brought in a Frisbee world record player to teach them how to throw those things.
Yeah. Like weapons.
Go ahead. I think I know where you're going with
Sark gives them all a speech about, what they're about to do. You will each receive an identity disc. Everything you learn will be imprinted on this disc.
So throw it away.
So you can implicate me if you keep it at any point.
Yes, correct. Subtle undertones.
Yeah.
And it looks good on your back.
So, of course, Flynn, he's the expert at video games, so he does very well down here.
Playing it live is much different than.
But he ends up killing the guy, right? He kills the accounting program.
Yeah, that guy is actually played by, that was Peter Jurassic, who went on to play a major character in Babylon 5. Actually, want to know something even better? Ted White is one of the guards, and they're hard to tell. They got their helmets on or whatever. But he was Jason in Friday the 13th Final Chapter.
Okay.
And he's also been in Romancing the Stone, Starman, and Escape from New York.
One of the games, as we said, is the light cycle sequence. Yep. So they escape the light cycle playing board. And when I say they, I'm talking about Ram, Tron, and Flynn.
Yep.
They break a hole in the wall, a crack in the wall, and they all take their light cycles out. Now, when they're out of it, then they don't have that light beam behind them anymore, which could be tricky. It's just like normal motorcycles. So they're free, like on the grid, in the computer. They break away, and they're on the run for the rest of the movie. And at one point, they find a pool of energy, a source of raw power.
Raw energy is the only thing I could come across that or figure out what it was, because they did power back up, especially Ram, who was running low there.
Right. Does that mean that they pee microchips when they have to pee?
That must hurt. That's
what
really got to
hurt. What are they passing there?
Speaking of which, apparently Jeff Bridges packed too big of a pouch, and that's why they had to put that tunic on him, was to hide his very protrusive member.
Jeff, and he's really missed, even though he is in the sequel. He's not like Flynn in the sequel for most of it.
Correct.
He's the bad guy. So you miss the cavalier Jeff Bridges in that movie.
2010 special effects, because again, they were trying to break new ground with that movie, and it was one of the first uses where they rotoscoped and did like de-aged him. So when he did show up, he looked like Jeff Bridges from 1982. It does not hold up.
No, it's like Botox. Dated. That's what it looks like.
It's very dated. It's like watching Jabba in the Star Wars Special Edition now.
So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that in the new one. Because is he going to be in this new one?
I do believe that Jeff Bridges is in this.
Okay.
To what level, I don't know. Right now, the big name is Jared Leto. But Leto's not letting him put a helmet on him. I need these golden locks to flow, baby. So, but we also have this other character that's only showed up twice. This little, what I only refer to like Tinkerbell, Bit, the little blob that kind of blips and talks.
Yeah, and it doesn't really have much plot purpose.
No, but it's a cool element, and I wish I'd seen more of it. At one point, when Flynn is on the run, they're trying to make their way to the CPU or the main control center, and they pass by this inoperative data processors, and there's all like these crazy character designs that I want to see much more of. You kind of blink and you miss all these things. At one point, we see these grid bugs, and they're like, oh, we better not mess with those. And then we never see them again. And I'm like, I want to see these things. So there's a lot going on here that they probably just didn't have the resources.
Yeah, it probably was in the script and they just never got the chance to film those scenes.
Yeah. You know what I thought was really great was the quote unquote state-of-the-art computer that they used for all these special effects had 2 megabytes of memory and 330 megabytes of storage. Compare that to my iPhone, which has 128 gigs. That's like hearing that the computers that sent us to the moon, if you believe in that stuff, was 100 RAM.
And speaking of the tunic that Jeff Bridges had to wear, they probably should have put one on Laura, because she's rocking some serious camel toe.
Couldn't take my eyes off. Those suits did not look comfortable.
No, not at all.
And like I said, live when you're just looking at some of this behind the scenes stuff, they look cheesy. But that whole Luke Skywalker lightsaber above his head, he's holding the Frisbee disc. I mean, that's a very iconic shot. It's on the movie poster. He does it there at the end to get inside the beam. There's a lot to like.
What do you call the Klingon type things again?
The big square things with the arms on the bottom.
Yes.
Those are recognizers.
Recognizer. So there's one point when Flynn commandeers one, but he doesn't know how to fly it.
Right.
So he's knocking into things, and then he slices it like on this. He's
and
driving.
That's a cool visual.
Yeah.
But it's so simplistic. Again, you could probably recreate this stuff on your computer in 10 minutes now. But back in the day, man, this was cutting edge stuff. You know, I never liked when they finally made it into the MCU and it's just that big spinning cylinder. His face looks so goofy. We've seen him throughout this whole thing looking like this cool, badass dude. And then you get in there and he's got these giant nostrils that just look, it's like, I can't take you seriously now, dude. I'm sorry. So,
but that's how they destroy it, is with one of these frisbees that they're given by the bad guy.
Collected all of his powers and memories. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever, however it works. But it's not me. I mean, at one point, the MCP makes Sark gigantic. He makes him grow. I'm like, this is cool. And then it lasts like a second. So, but what I will say, which is, so he blows up the MCP. And early on, doesn't the computer tell Dillinger that he's planning on attacking the Pentagon?
Yes, he does.
So he just thwarted the cyber attack. He's a hero. He's a war hero.
But they're unaware of that.
Yeah, they'll never
The only
know.
one aware of that is Dillinger.
Right. All he wants is, listen, he just averted World War III. All he wants is his credit for his video game.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all he wants.
That was his character's main drive, is that he wants the video game credit and the money that comes along with it.
Yeah, he's like Han Solo now. Just give me my reward. But like you said, you lose sight of that because it gets so mumble jumbled into all this other stuff. You forget what the end game is.
So once the MCU or whatever it is, MCP is destroyed, that means the digital lines of communication are now open again and nothing's restricting it. So it's like a free world.
Free guy.
Yeah.
It's exactly, they stole this entire plot.
So then suddenly Flynn, they don't explain how, gets zapped back to the real world. It just happens.
No, he just by default comes back out. Just go with it because it doesn't make any sense.
So at the very end, it's such a throwaway, quick ending too in the real world.
Yeah, you don't even quite
understand.
Nothing
is you just like have to assume that Flynn, he's in the helicopter. He must be the new CEO of the company.
And he gets out of the helicopter and says, "Greetings, programmers."
And Laura now has blonde hair and she's wearing like a fancy dress and with Alan on the roof of the building.
Living high on the hog.
Yeah.
I don't know. Listen, all is good because we get a Journey soundtrack.
Yes, a Journey song at the end.
A long forgotten Journey song, by the way.
Yeah, that was never a hit single.
No. So Wendy Carlos is credited with the composition.
Yep.
And apparently this score has been unavailable on CD for numerous years because of the severe degradation to the original analog master tapes. And it wasn't until the 20th anniversary that we had the technology enough to allow the tapes to be temporarily restored to a playable condition for digital remastering.
They say temporarily, so probably they were destroyed in the process.
Probably. Yeah, just enough to be able to transfer them into digital format so then you can clean them up. And
right. I assume that upon release, there was a soundtrack album that came out.
You would think so. So at least there would be some kind of a master
track. So that
track,
must be, for years, that must have been like priced way out of reality on eBay. So
they're probably only on vinyl and
cassette maybe.
Cassette, yeah. Mm-hmm. So no CD. No. We mentioned the fact that the arcade video game just, was a commercial success, hugely outgrossed the actual movie.
Were there action figures?
They probably were very limited. Just like Black Hole, there were figures. I don't remember being Tron. There had to have been a light cycle. Why would you have not created a light cycle? That's a good question. I don't remember them. In my brain, I don't remember seeing them.
Well, maybe we'll research that. Yeah, as a kid, didn't like it. It was definitely, if you had asked me coming out of the theater, I would have given it the thumbs down.
Yeah.
But watching it again, I am on board with it. I knew what was going on. This is probably the second time I've watched it within the past 4 months. So I'm even more impressed by it on this viewing. I would give it I was going to say 3 3/4 as well, but I might bump that up to 4 with this viewing.
I am right there with you on 4.
Yeah.
It is ahead of its time. It is slow in places, like you said. Some of those Disney movies, especially like the black hole. We talked about the black hole, and I have like such fond memories of that, watching it with my brother on HBO, eating hell of a good dip with chips, and had the action figures, Maximilian, stuff like that. But it's not a great movie.
No.
It is a product of its time, and this is one of those. I really want to see what they're going to do with Ares, and I wanted to immediately watch The Legacy after this. But again, just because you can update the light cycles and make them look cooler, is that Olivia Wilde? Olivia Wilde's in.
Yeah, she's
right?
She's in Legacy. Yeah.
I remember seeing it in the theater. I ran to the theater when it dropped in 2010, and I enjoyed it immensely. But
it definitely helps to watch this movie like directly before you watch it, because you'd get lost if you didn't. And
like I said, just for the historical aspects, if you're going to watch it on Disney Plus, watch that little 15-minute behind the scene featurette, because there's a lot of neat little tidbits they threw out there. One of which was, I guess there was a looming actor strike. So they were shooting 13 days straight, 14-hour days just to get this movie made. And one of the things that they revealed is that they blew a fuse and created a brownout in Burbank on 2 gigs of memory. Which is just mind-boggling.
It's there waiting on Disney Plus, ripe for rediscovery.
Yeah. And like I said, it looks fantastic. Mm-hmm. It looks gorgeous.
All right. So what else did we do over the break?
Well, I did a lot of work because apparently Christmas never ends. I'm busier now than I was during peak. I am 5 episodes in to watching Yellow Jackets on Netflix.
Oh, okay. So you've taken the plunge.
I've taken the plunge. One of my coworkers mentioned it a while ago. You've mentioned it, and it's just been sitting there on the back burner. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to start watching this. So I'm embarrassed to say that I was 3 episodes in before I even realized that Misty is Christina Ricci.
Oh, really?
Embarrassed because I finally, I think after the 3rd episode, got to like the opening credits. I'm like, Christina Ricci. I said, where? And then I was just like, I'm such a moron. I never picked up on it, but I will tell you right now, I'm loving this character.
The show is fantastic, and it's just frustrating that Netflix only has the 1st season, because you want more as soon as it's done. It ends on a cliffhanger.
So there is a 2nd season.
It exists. Yeah, it's already out. They're making the 3rd now.
Well, where is the 2nd? Where can I watch a 2nd season? Because I'm almost through.
Showtime.
I don't have Showtime.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the problem. Because
that is a
my
problem.
Buddy's like, oh yeah, how far are you? I said, I'm only like 5 episodes in. He goes, season 2 is bad. It's crazy. And then I'm looking last night. I'm like, there's only 10 episodes. I said, I think he's crazy. He's nuts. It is not what I expected. There's definitely some lost elements going on, which I like, but I did not realize the time jump that we are seeing, like current versions of these characters. And so you become keenly aware of certain characters that we have not seen modern day versions of yet, which leads you to say, all right, what's going to happen to this character?
Yeah, exactly. Are they dead? Or have they not been introduced yet? What's going on?
Correct. Right. So I think they have done a fantastic job of finding, I don't know which one came first, but I would assume that the adult versions were cast, and then they found younger girls to play these younger versions. But for the most part, they're pretty spot on. I mean, you can look at these characters outside of Misty, who retains her round glasses and the curly hair, even in the present timeline. And you're like, all right, that's clearly her. There are other girls that you're like, yeah, that could easily be her 20 years ago.
The only thing that makes me pause about this is, nowadays, in between seasons of a show like this, you can wait a couple of years. And these flashbacks are for a specific time period. But how are they, these girls are going to get older, especially.
Well, that's what we're dealing with Stranger Things. Yeah, no, you're right.
Although with Stranger Things, time is going by, so that's allowed.
Well,
right?
I think there's also this new season is a time jump as well.
Okay.
Because you're right, you get to a certain age, and all of a sudden, you no longer. My son doesn't look the same that he did 2 years ago.
Yeah.
He grew. But yeah, I'm on board with this, and I'm like, all right, they're just starting to get into some of the weird elements.
Yeah, well, it really hooks you with that opening of the first episode, because you're trying to figure out who is that girl that was killed in the very first scene.
You're right. You're trying to figure out which one it is. Yeah, there's some neat intrigue going on, and I'm on board. My wife is just watching up over her book. So it's frustrating because I got to pause and then try to explain. I'm like, either watch it or don't watch it. Don't start asking. Wait a minute, what? It's like, well, no, that's that younger girl's version, and this is that's why they showed her with the gun afterwards. It's like, oh
yeah.
Juliette Lewis. Someone's like, she looks like crap. I said, well, I think that's the point. This character has come in and out of rehab, so I think that's what she's supposed to look like. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Good. So now that it's on Max, I have watched Joker. Folie à deux again. Okay. And I will double down on loving this movie.
Okay.
Watched it with my wife this time. She loved it as well. So in its twisted way, it's a very like a romantic kind of a movie, even though the romance all takes place in his head.
In his head. That's exactly what happens in real life. Sometimes it's more in your head than it is. I know people who are catching up with it now, and there's a fair amount of people who are like, I really enjoyed it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, there are some big name celebrities who are defending this thing too. Quentin Tarantino is on board. John Waters. I've read a few others.
That's fine. That's good.
So what are we doing next time?
Are we going to Transylvania?
Well, I don't know what.
I don't know either. Robert Eggers.
Robert Eggers. We just we did The Northman not too long ago.
That's a solid movie.
Yeah.
That's been floating around. I've come across that a couple times, and I'm like, I need to sit down and just rewatch this movie.
So this is his follow-up, Nosferatu.
The Northman was after The Lighthouse?
Yes.
Oh,
it was.
Okay.
Yep.
God, I feel like that was like 3 years ago.
Now, interesting thing is Willem Dafoe is in this movie, but he played Nosferatu himself. But it was like a movie within a movie kind of a thing. Too.
Oh, so he was playing an actor who was playing. He was
playing the actor who was playing. Okay. Shadow of the Vampire is what the movie is called. Bleh. It is a fictionalized account of the making of the original Nosferatu.
Wait, do vampires cast shadows? They don't cast reflections.
They don't cast reflections. It's a good question. That's a valid question.
I guess we'll have to watch it and find out.
But this movie is not about a real vampire. It's about making the 1921 Nosferatu. So
you're talking about the Willem Dafoe.
So Willem Dafoe plays Nosferatu and the actor playing Nosferatu.
Okay. But this movie that we're going to watch is a
retelling.
Remake. It's a remake, a retelling of the original, which is just a Von Dracula ripoff.
So they didn't call it Dracula.
Okay. Still iconic. One of the most iconic monster faces out there. Yeah. And
imagery as well.
Yes. Yeah. And if we know Eggers, it's gonna be painterly. It's gonna be gorgeous looking. I'm gonna probably have to take somebody with me to hold my hand.
No.
I'm not entirely sure.
I have not seen photos yet of Bill Skarsgård.
Now that you say that, neither have I. That's interesting.
So I'm going to stay away. I'm going to stay away from anything, and hopefully it'll be a surprise to me.
Yeah. If you want to get your Nosferatu collectible, I know that Regal is offering up a sarcophagus popcorn tin, that when you open it up the top, it has rats inside it.
So along with that, we're staying in the vampire genre for one unbelievably we haven't covered yet.
No, this has been on your list for a very long time.
For a very long time. Salem's Lot.
We are talking the David Soul made-for-TV movie?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Directed by Tobe Hooper of Texas Chainsaw Massacre fame.
Pre or post?
Very much post. This was 5 years after the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Ooh, that is one movie I will not watch.
It is intense, the Texas Chainsaw. Not gory, mind you, despite the title.
The newer ones lean into that crap.
Yeah. But it is intense and it is frightening. It is, if there's ever a movie that could be described as a white knuckler, it is the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
But again, that's not what we're talking about.
Salem's Lot is what we're talking about.
So if this was a made-for-TV movie, is it just 2 hours or is it like a mini-series?
No, it's for the longest time, I knew it as a kid from what they used to play on HBO, which was an edited version, which was about an hour and 45 minutes. But the version that is available today, I believe it's on Max. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but it is on a streaming service, is 180 minutes. So it is the full TV miniseries.
Okay. Now, this is based on a Stephen King novel.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
A very well-regarded Stephen King novel.
Okay. All right. I guess we'll have to, you'll have to tune in next episode to find out if it's a faithful adaptation. So,
all right, Nosferatu and Salem's Lot next time.
Nosferatu to you too.
But until then, Happy New Year, Jeff.
Yes, Happy New Year, Jim.
And to everyone out there,
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Let's hope it's a good one for everyone involved. And as always, thanks for listening.
Yes, thanks. Bye.
Blah.
If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your podcasts on. Also, be sure to email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
You can also follow us on all of our socials. We're on Instagram, X, Facebook, Threads. Just go to tmiconfessionalspodcast.com. All of our links are there. And leave us a 5-star review. See you at the concession stand.
And at one point, they find a pool of energy, a source of raw power.
Raw energy is the only thing I could come across that or figure out.
Does that mean that they pee microchips when they have to pee?
That must hurt.